Congresswoman, thank you for being on the program. Pretty alarming series of news bombshells over the last 24 hours. I guess let's begin with the FBI presumably destroying evidence. Can you talk us through, if that is in fact happening, Schellenberger backed up our reporting yesterday, what would be the penalties for that? Have you been in contact with Kash Patel or anybody in the FBI? It seems to be something that would immediately halt your investigation into classified evidence.
Yeah, of course. So I actually have a call set up right after this hit with the actual whistleblower that you were talking to yesterday to get some more information. And then I had a meeting this morning with the task force and our attorneys at task force. Look, it's very possible. First of all, we don't know who it is yet. And obviously we want to run down the sources. But if this is happening, first of all, it's obstructing Congress in our investigation. So you're talking about obstruction of Congress. That's obviously contempt charge. And so we would be bringing that forward if we can find out who it is. But I have the utmost faith in Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to find this. But I just want to be clear about something. From the get-go, from the start of us announcing this committee, we had anticipated that with President Trump's order to declassify documents, that it would be a difficult task, right? We know that when President Trump was previously in office, he was actually blocked from releasing the remaining JFK files by the former Secretary of State. And so we know that President Trump wanted this done. And so Speaker Johnson, Chairman Comer set up the task force to aid the president's efforts. Now, to be clear, we don't hold declassification authority, but we are the action arm and the punitive action arm of the president in the event that stuff like this would happen. And so what you saw was basically, I think it was an effort to discredit the task force. Why would you not want there to be oversight into the declassification process, right? Then we find out that with everything that was happening, we weren't really getting the responses that we wanted. We have government agencies that are obviously getting ready to give us briefings this week. But I did think it was a little bit peculiar that some of the documents that should have been released immediately weren't. And so I started getting vocal about that. Obviously, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't know about. So we have to create paper trails, et cetera. But long story short, when we saw that information coming out yesterday, unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. Obviously, seeing what CNN was reporting coming out of the CIA is absolutely alarming. But I want people to remember that this embedded corruption has been there for generations. It's been kind of how Washington's been run, I would argue, since JFK was in office. And so there's a lot of work to do, but just remember that this is not by accident that this is all happening right now. And I would like to also let you guys know that I actually just met with the National Archives, and even they said that they're actually weeding out people at the archives that were obstructionists. And so President Trump definitely getting in, I would argue, has saved the country. We would not have known how bad it was had he not taken the executive branch. But again, it's alarming, it's disheartening, and I fully back my words that I said earlier that what the CIA is talking about right now, if people sell secrets to a foreign government, you will be charged with treason. So do not do that. Do not burn documents. You will be held accountable. We will find you. So just don't even do it.
So, yeah, let's talk about some of the punishments for treason or for destroying evidence that is under subpoena, or you have a right as the Article 1 of the Constitution to see and to oversee. These are obviously massive penalties. I think the penalty for treason is death.
Yeah, so especially if you're in the military, it is death. Yeah. But also,
and you are in the military. He is, right? So it's like you, your husband have both served in the military, so you're well aware of this.
We were vets. So if you're in the military and you're doing that, yes, the punishment can be death. Also, too, though, the current statute for a federal employee destroying evidence is a fine, and there's a minimum 3 years for prison. But what I will tell you is that's unacceptable, especially when you're looking at the evidence that potentially they're destroying. Remember, the whole task force, the whole purpose of this was to set up transparency so that the American people, would know what happened so it never happens again, right? If you're informed on history, it doesn't repeat itself if you take that seriously. But then you see this type of stuff happen. So I believe that those punitive sentencing needs to increase, and that's something that my office is looking into. But then we're also finding out, Benny, that the actual declassification process for documents that have been FOIA, that's in itself a nightmare as well. What we're finding out is even though the president might authorize something to be declassified, Then it then kicks over to the agencies that has jurisdiction of which the document came from for final review of the declassification efforts. In my opinion, if something's declassified by the president, that's it. It doesn't need to go back to another agency, another bureaucrat for declassification. And then the next thing would be is, why is it that all these documents are scattered to the wind? It needs to be in just one central location. So the National Archives is actively, as we speak, working on setting up a one-page landing spot for all the declassified documents. Go direct. It's not going to be released as soon as they start to upload those documents, digitize them. They'll be on that website for the American people to know. But just know that I'm very serious. Right now, what's happening with the intelligence war happening, it's very real and it's very sporty.
So, I mean, again, like when you made your announcement, this is the first time I've ever heard a member of Congress come out and say at a public dais, like, hey, there were 2 shooters with JFK. It's pretty obvious. Now, the American people believe that, but I've never had anybody come out in Congress on an official seal, and say, no, this is actually what I believe, in fact.
And I'm not the only one. There's Democrats that also believe that. And I think that, going back to why we wanted to, again, establish the task force, it's not right for government to gaslight the American people, but also, too, let's talk about the evidence that was there. And, Benny, I actually made another groundbreaking statement that, look, the Warren Commission was putting out a faulty report and that there was a single bullet that happened to hit both the president and, at the time, the Texas governor. And I also said that I wanted to interview people on the Warren Commission. And immediately, some of these Dem Oppo firms try to say that everyone was dead. Well, that's not true. They're actually alive, and we're actually trying to set up interviews with these people and talk to them. The whole purpose and objective of this task force, to be clear, is to ensure President Trump's documents are declassified. We are the action arm for the president. We don't hold declassification authority, but we are the bulldogs. We are the attack dogs that will be going after people that block and obstruct, and we will be making their names known to the American people. Now, to be clear, Congress also should follow up, though, on some of these new findings, because in my opinion, it does history a disservice when you're putting out wrong information.
So have you experienced, it's quite interesting. You announced your task force a week later, less than a week later, we have FBI whistleblowers coming on this program being like, they're destroying the evidence.
It wasn't just, look, the day I announced the task force and I announced other members, first of all, there was absolute, I would say, an op to try to discredit the task force, which is weird because you would want there to be a task force to be the attack dog for the president to ensure that these documents are actually being declassified. Remember, we don't hold declassification authority, but we can bring punitive action if people are blocking, right? So that's the first thing. Also, too, pushing for more transparency and requesting other documents like UAP, like the 9/11, like COVID-19 to be declassified, which, by the way, Benny, I spoke to some of the families that are suing, some of the 9/11 families, and I was told, okay, not just me, but our investigative attorneys on oversight were told that the FBI mishandled evidence in regards to people that actually aided some of the 9/11 plane hijackers. They lost evidence. They did not respond to these families, to inquiry. They blockaded them. So the FBI, in my opinion, right now is in very bad shape. And Cash and Dan Bongino have their work cut out for them, although I think they're very qualified. And they're going to have to root out some systemic corruption because it's there. And it's obvious to me. But what I will also say is that no sooner did we announce it, was there the effort to obviously discredit. And then probably about a day later, we found out that the FBI found thousands of pages of JFK, MLK, RFK documents. And then
the timing, Congresswoman,
the timing,
is really
right. And so while we're doing all this, then we're also too dealing with getting the briefings from members from these other agencies that are complying, saying, hey, look, we're trying to find, we need to declass this. We want to work with President Trump's agenda. And then we find out from the whistleblower, of which I'm talking to right after this hit, that there's destruction of evidence at the FBI. Then we find out that the CIA is potentially going, there's rogue agents that they're worried about are going to be selling information, which is actual treason, to foreign adversaries. I mean, this is all very serious stuff. This is not just, a plot on a sitcom. This is scary. And so what I will tell you is beware of people that were intentionally trying to spread disinformation, because those people have said nothing about destruction of evidence by people that weren't tied to this task force. So you guys should be able to know who it is. Okay. So that's all I'll say about that.
So let's focus in on the Epstein list. This is something obviously that has been such a nexus point for everything from conspiracy to wild accusation to potentially entrapping royals and American presidents, right? And there are clearly very powerful vested interests in ensuring that everybody who ever went to Epstein's Islands or flew on the Lolita Express, that they never get exposed. But what's beginning to appear as a material accusation against Jeffrey Epstein was that he was being run as a foreign intelligence op, and that a foreign government was allowed to come into an American jail and kill him with the permission of Bill Barr and our own government. Now, the person who first floated that was your friend, Matt Gaetz, somebody who you've worked very, very closely with and served in Congress here in the state of Florida with. Matt Gaetz told us that on our program. And then yesterday we have FBI whistleblowers saying absolutely this is the kind of thing that a Mossad, right, would be able to engage in. A foreign intelligence agency would be able to engage in this and would be able to run an op like this. And the American government is protecting that. And perhaps those are the reinforced layers that are preventing the full explanation of Jeffrey Epstein from coming forward. Have you seen anything like that, Congresswoman?
Well, to be clear, I have not seen anything in regards to Epstein, hence why we're pushing for declassification. But to be clear, I believe that if there is protections, it's not coming from your overall general American government. It would be from rogue actors. And to be also clear, I do not believe that if people are, protecting whoever might be involved, look, these people were adults. They made decisions that brought them to that situation. If they're genuinely afraid about what might be coming out about that information, maybe they shouldn't have done it in the first place. But ultimately, this is about transparency. So if you want to restore trust within the government, you have to release everything, no matter who that implicates, whatever it might be. So we're pushing for that. But Benny, given your whistleblower coming forward and given the reports that we're finding, are we ever going to see the true declassified stuff? I don't know, because I don't know what's been destroyed. I also am going to be reaching out to Kash Patel, and I have faith that Kash will likely be responding, or at least if this is true, if it's not true, I mean, we all have questions. And so look, there's a lot of moving pieces. President Trump getting into office. If you think for a fact that he was trying to protect someone, you're wrong. As you can see, they tried to assassinate the man. As you can also see, he's been under great scrutiny by the leftist media. They're not wanting to talk about the wins. But the fact is that he chose to stand up, the declassification efforts because he wants to restore that trust. And so, look, we're not in the interest of protecting anyone except for the American people. And so I'm trying to push for that declassification. Obviously, don't have the authority to do it. But I assure whatever I come across, you guys will be knowing, and you guys will probably get it at the same time we do.
So can you just lay out the landscape here? Yeah. So what are you pushing for first? What documents do you want first? Tell us as much as you can right now.
I want any of the documents whenever they're available. I don't have a particular order. If I were to get, if Kash Patel releases or Pam Bondi releases Epstein stuff first, we'll look into that. If we get the National Archives to put up publicly the documents on JFK, we're going to look into that. I can tell you that how it was supposed to work per President Trump's executive order is that you would have JFK files released first, followed by RFK and MLK. Okay, so the reason why the task force again was set up is so that we can pressure people to do their jobs to release that information to the American people. Now, what I'm finding is that the archives process is a complete disaster, of which President Trump has rightfully appointed a new person to take that over. I did meet with the archives. They are going to have a website and a landing page where everyone can go directly. As soon as those documents are scanned, they will be up and available on the National Archives. So that will be for the American people to see. We're not stonewalling or gatekeeping anything. That will be directly for you to look into. Also, too, though, I do think it's important for Congress to correct the wrongdoings of previous commissions. The Warren Commission, in my opinion, was not done accurately. I think that they pushed a narrative, and I think that narrative was to probably reinstill faith in the American people, because at that time in history, it was very volatile. But I would argue, too, right now, what we're finding and what we're seeing, the levels of corruption that exist in the intelligence agencies, that restoration of trust needs to be there as well. And so that's why you're actually seeing this as a bipartisan effort. Now, to be clear, I think it's very, very shady and very scary what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, okay? I do not believe that he killed himself, and I don't think other members of Congress believe that. I think that there's very powerful entities at play here. Frankly, I want to find out exactly what happened at the FBI, because if they are actually doing what this whistleblower alleges that they're doing without, government oversight, they're literally operating rogue, then those people are enemies of the state, and I believe that.
It's so interesting that you brought this up, and I did want to ask directly about the CIA, but Congresswoman, we have so many pieces of evidence. I mean, you have photographs and videos of the FBI raiding Jeffrey Epstein's home, bringing out entire terabytes of data, hard drives, CDs, video cassette tapes. We know everything's on film. We know everything's on camera. Tucker said it a million times. We have heard from our own whistleblowers. There's so much evidence there, and we've seen nothing. Like nothing. Boom, gone. Right?
That makes two of us.
Yeah.
And then we're finding out again. So going back to, we set up the task force, thought that we might be blockaded, and then we're finding out that there's destruction of evidence.
Okay. So very quickly here, a federal agent decides that they, according to CNN, CIA spooks are planning on selling America's secrets to foreign powers. This is clearly going to be something that someone like you, who's a veteran, takes very seriously. What will be the consequences if this report plays out? And the reason why we're taking it with seriousness is the byline of that CNN report are like all of the deep state leakers and reporters who do hack and leak operations regularly on behalf of the deep state. And clearly somebody is doing predictive programming, saying this is what we're planning on doing. What's your message to them?
Well, first and foremost, if you leak classified intelligence information to a foreign adversary of the United States, that is treason. That is by definition treason. And you will be held accountable. This is not the same Department of Justice that was under the Biden administration, or the same FBI, or the same CIA. To be clear, there is both good and bad, not just in Congress, but also in these intelligence agencies. So you have people that are true believers, believe in the Constitution, like this whistleblower that came forward, right? He came forward to Congress and testified previously, credible whistleblower. But what we have here is the CIA needs to go through and flush this out, because this type of behavior, basically politically motivated treason against the American people, in my opinion, if you have been entrusted to do this and you would put American lives in danger that could get us involved in another war, I believe that should be treated as a capital punishment. That should be the death penalty.
There's no. What is the deterrent then at this point, right?
The UCMJ, and the UCMJ is separate from the rights that we have as civilians under the Constitution. But if you are releasing classified information that would put American in harm's way, in my opinion, and you're doing it because you don't like the president, capital punishment.
So, in closing, in conclusion here, Congresswoman, what is the best way that our audience can help out your task force? What is the best way for us to apply pressure?
So first,
because what you're talking about here is the most important work, I would say, arguably, to restore trust in the American people in their government.
Well, and I want to let people to know that this is not just like us. There's other members of Congress, Democrats, that say, "Yo, JFK was a Democrat. MLK did amazing things for the civil rights movement. RFK." All of these people historically, why is it that this has been so compartmentalized, that the American people have been shut off? These were our heroes, public people to us. We deserve to know the truth. So stop silencing. So the best thing that you can do is listen to this segment, share the correct information, because I can tell you that the minute I'm one of the most conservative members of Congress, the minute that I announced this, I had a barrage of fake attacks. I mean, it was wild to see happen in real time. I don't care because I'm a member, but I'm letting you guys know it was intentional to try to discredit the task force. And then look at what we're finding out is happening. And people, I think, are shocked about it because it's just happening so blatantly in their face. Yeah. And so just remember, there's a lot going on in Washington. Just because you're not up here doesn't mean that you can't help fight the good fight. So obviously spread the correct information, but then also to keep the pressure on.
It's like amazing. We haven't seen anything move since Tucker Carlson saying the CIA source told him that the CIA had a hand in JFK's assassination. Tucker went forward with that reporting, and then his show was offline like a week later. It's like unbelievable. And
Tucker Carlson too has put out a lot of good information, and we've seen that Tucker Carlson, I think, was also being monitored by the intelligence agencies. Yeah. And so why would you at all want to attack someone like Tucker Carlson? It baffles me. So.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to it. We appreciate your bravery. Never heard a member of Congress be like, yeah, totally, there were two shooters. Duh. Everyone can see the Zapruder film.
I actually had the opportunity, and I'm going to be putting this up. I actually just spoke to an engineer that was able to someone connected to Janet Reno, who was investigating on one of the previous investigating committees, the JFK assassination, had actually asked that this engineering firm put together a rendering using modern day technology. And so they actually went and took an entire digital image using mathematical points. I think it was over 1 million points. And they were actually able to put forward the theory on the single bullet theory and actually disproved it with modern day technology. So
where'd that report go? I was like,
we'll be sharing all that information with you guys as soon as we get the digitized video that we need for it. But I mean, it's just, look, there's so many good people, investigative journalists, people that have dedicated their lives to uncovering the truth for the American people. And it was the fault of the federal government for not releasing it as they should have. Do I think that there are rogue actors in the CIA and the intelligence agencies that do bad things? 100%. But that is exactly why we have to have accountability and why we need to have transparency. And so it's good to hear that the National Archives is working with us, because they hold a lot of this evidence. And the fact that they're getting a landing page up and ready for everyone to go to directly, to be able to have access to information directly and making it easy, that's the first phase, right? Second phase is we need to ensure that we have these different agencies completing President Trump's task, which is where we come in. We've asked for the documentations and to the implementation of President Trump's executive order. And so if we don't see people are complying with that, we're going to let you know.
All right. Well, we're open for business, right? And we're very happy to be creating some of these news cycles, applying pressure from the outside, and we very much look forward to the answers to these questions, because you can't have a real government if you constantly if you can kill presidents, right? And if you can keep these secrets from the American people, it's not a real representative.
Remember, everyone, they tried to kill Trump not once but twice.
Yeah. Do you think
very radical, fringe, leftist? Look, the fact that we still don't know much about the initial assassination attempt on President Trump is disturbing. And what I was hearing in Washington in regards to who, like this person having access to, burner accounts, whatever. Why did we hear nothing?
Again, it's like not when you see the actual powers that had the ability to go in and kill a president in the 1960s, and then those powers remained unchecked for the next 60 years. Well, of course there are motivations to kill.
Look, what's interesting is I actually met someone that was actually a cryptologist at the Bay of Pigs a couple of days ago, and he said that there was, right when the Bay of Pigs was happening, that they received a encrypted signal that was not possible to be actually cracked. And so it was at the time the UN secretary had actually allegedly had ties, this was under Kennedy's administration, to the Communist Party, and actually was trying to interfere with that entire operation. And so this is, mind you, someone who was there. Okay, so I'm just telling you what I heard. And allegedly was responsible for that switch. And the guy said, I was basically told to kind of be quiet and promoted to shut up. I actually resigned my commission in the Navy after that occurred. So I think that there's a lot that we're unpacking. I think that a lot of questions people are asking, I think that those are right questions to be asking. And at the end of the day, remember that, at the time before we had the tech that we have now, there was a lot that could be gotten away with without there being accountability. Now it's a little bit harder because of forensics, all of that. But, it's an interesting time to be alive. And definitely I'm happy that I've been given this task force. However, let me tell you, me being able to witness the intel fight happen in real time is pretty wild to see. So,
yeah. Yes. In the heart of darkness, ladies and gentlemen, give power to the people who are fighting for the light. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, obviously followed by 750,000. We're on our way to 1 million. Here we go. 780,000 Americans. Can't be wrong. Follow the Congresswoman, an actual agent for light in Washington, D.C. Godspeed, Congresswoman.
Thank you.